him. Kind of just had an interview for a couple of days. We actually met in England because we were both there, and he's like, "Hey, do you want to run a training session?" Ran a training session. Went to a game with them, and made some comments at halftime, and spent a couple of days with them. And I left, and they kept on with their tour. And when he got back, he called me up and said, "You want to come in full time?" And I did, and we spent the season with Foothills, gearing up for the CPL opening season last year.
How do you guys kind of complement each other as coaches, do you think?
Yeah, I think we do a lot. I think Tommy has a bit of a playing career, but spent more time actual coaching. And I've coached obviously not as long, but had an extensive playing career, and I think we've meshed really well. I'm quite calm most of the time, and Tommy's wears his heart in his sleeve a lot. So I think we balance off well against each other, and it's been good in the locker room. I think the players know what they're getting out of both of us because we're both consistent people, and it's been great. Worked really well, and we've created a great culture around the staff and amongst the squad.
So Tommy is one of the coaches that I feel like we know pretty well. You know, he wears his heart on his sleeve, and he's quite an outgoing guy. And we saw that on Onesoccer last year. From working with him and from your experience with him, is there anything that we don't know about Tommy that you can take us behind the scenes on?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing maybe that might surprise you is how much of a student of the game he is, how much he loves the game. He's always looking for ways to improve, watching other teams, looking at tactics, looking at other coaches, and he just wants to develop his game. And it's just that ongoing, it's just passion to get better, right? And you don't always find that, and it's refreshing to me because I'm always looking to learn. You never know it all, so we're both in that boat, trying to get better every week, every month. And I think that's another way we complement each other. We're always trying to push forward.
Hmm.
Martin, it's one thing to join a new team in a new coaching staff where you're not super familiar with everyone. You're still trying to get to know them, but then you're also joining a brand new league. So just what was your mindset in approaching the league and sort of setting expectations for yourself and the club so early on?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, joining the league was just massive excitement for me because this is it's so long in coming, having a Canadian league, because I just
Right.
came in as a pro as this CSL folded, and then to have it been so long till there's new league, it was just really exciting. And joining a new staff, it can be difficult. I'm quite a laid back personality, and I kind of can find my way to fit in a way. So, and I think Tommy did a really good job of putting a staff together that complement each other. We all bring different things to the table. We're all open minded. We're all looking to learn, and we don't all think the same, which is great because we have great conversations. We push each other. Um, we don't always agree, and when we don't, it's just one of those things. We all know that. Tommy's Mr. 51%, right? And he can make the final decision.
Yeah.
But what he knows he's got is a staff that once he makes that decision, we're all on board and we move forward.
Who's the good cop? Who's the bad cop on the pitch then?
A bit of both at times,
Okay.
I'd say Tommy's more the bad cop at times because he really puts his foot down. But I'm one of those people, you get me to a point and I can quickly become the bad cop. It takes a while to get me going, but once you get me going, I snap a little bit myself.
Yeah.
So, but I can control it pretty good, but everyone gets to a point and they they lose a little bit.
Yeah, it's good to have a bit of both. You mentioned pulling some aspects from your playing style, your playing days. I imagine you bring some of the indoor game as well. You started out in Edmonton with a goal in 15 games, and then you went to Dallas and recorded 27 goals in 29 games. Quite the turnaround in just 5 years, Martin. What happened in those years, and how did you become such an indoor superstar?
Yeah, I don't know. It was funny. I was playing in England. I was almost signing a contract in the Scottish Premiership, and I got injured. And I came back, and it was just middle of season. So Edmonton called me up. So I went and thought I'll try indoor. There, I knew a bunch of guys playing, and I joined up and I was rookie of the year my first year.
Yeah.
Second year at Edmonton, after 5 games, I think I was leading the league, or 7 games, and I was leading the league in scoring by about 10 points.
Hmm.
But unfortunately, the team folded. And then I kind of got away from indoor, and it was my last year in Rochester. I was already signed a contract to come back to Vancouver, and Dallas approached me, obviously because my brother was playing basketball there, so they approached me to come down and play, and I thought it was a great opportunity because me and my brother were really really close growing up, being a year apart in school, almost 2 years in age, but I was always on his teams growing up. I played up a year in most sports, and so it was just a chance for us to reconnect, and it was great. I had one kid at the time and one on the way, so my wife and I went down there and spent the 5-month season indoor, hanging out with my brother and having a good time.
Yeah, for people watching on our YouTube stream, Martin Nash's brother is a decent basketball player. Steve Nash had a pretty solid career in the NBA. The indoor game. I want to get everyone's take on this. What's one rule you would take from the indoor game and apply it to the modern football game? Ollie, let's start with you.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I don't know a lot about indoor soccer because we don't really have it in England, and it's more of a North American thing, right? So I was pretty fascinated doing some research before this show. I came across a guy, Martin, called Tatu, who I believe was your coach in Dallas.
Yeah.
Who's a bit of a superstar of the indoor game, as I understand it.
Yeah, he was a Brazilian guy. Yeah, really good player in his day.
Yeah. Something like 800 goals. So that was pretty
What?
interesting. Yeah, the Pele of indoor football. So in terms of rule changes, I don't really know how I feel about this, but I've thought before about, power plays and sin bins and how that might work in professional soccer. We were talking about rule changes the other day, and one of the ones I pitched was turning tactical fouls into red cards, because I think they kind of spoil the game. I'm not a big fan of them, but maybe as a compromise, you could get into a kind of sin bin situation, but I don't know how you guys feel about that.
Oh yeah, any sort of double dip into rugby, I'm here for. Look, when we played this game last, I pumped my chest a little bit. I love these tinkering with the game things. Football purists are not my friends, and I'm okay with that. In terms of rules, I would change. This would be the toughest one to implement, but if we're gonna do this, let's do this big. I like stop time, and let me tell you why. If the goalkeeper gets the ball, turn the clock off for 3 or 4 seconds. Let them bounce around. If the ball goes into touch, stop the clock. That's going to keep players honest, and then give us a set added time at the end, whether it's 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. Put it on the clock so everyone can see it, and then make sure that when those balls are going out, you're not time wasting. Give that team trying to chase down the win, chase down the points, a chance to really get them. So you would anger a lot of people, is the polite way of saying it. But if we're going to bring in a rule, let's do it big. I like stop time.
Yeah, it's not bad. So you get a buzzer beater potentially too, right?
Yeah, and you wouldn't have to do the full 90 if you want to gradually bring it in, but extra time, set it, you know what it is. So if there's 5 minutes, there's 5 minutes, ball goes over the line, stop the clock. Before free kick, stop the clock, build that drama up a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think that would work at all.
Oh, of course not, but this is why I love this game.
I think like the ball is in play something like 25 minutes a half or something like that, I think, in football as it is now. So you'd massively lengthen the game, I think, to actually play 45 minutes of real football. But, yeah, it'll be interesting.
Martin, I don't know if you're laughing at how dumb that idea is or if you're enjoying the thought experiment.
No, the game would be very long though. It's I don't mind the thought experiment. It's that's, I guess, the yellow cards for wasting time is kind of part of that. It can ruin the game at times, especially teams are ahead and they drag the game on. For me, it would be the substitution rules.
Okay.
I was going
to go here
Come on,
too.
take set pieces and run back off.
Yes, here we go, Martin. Now we're talking.
Now, Martin, I think there's something there with the substitution. So my idea was having you still have your set 3 subs, but at halftime, unlimited subs. So at halftime, you can just swap out your squad or make whatever changes you need to make, and players can come back in. So if you've saved one of your allotted 3 subs in the game, you can bring a player that came off at halftime. You can bring him back on later. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, actually, a lot of men's leagues do that kind of rule where you can make as many subs at halftime, and then you only get 3, so the game doesn't stop too much in the flow of the game. In theory, it's not a bad rule, but I think when you get to the professional level, the problem is players play at such a high level, when they peak and you stop, you take them off for them to get warm again and get back in the game. I think you're just asking for injuries a little bit. So,
yeah.
But in theory, it's not a bad idea. You get the pace of the game might be faster because it's the players coming on fresh, in the second half. But
some men's leagues players or men's league players are probably better athletes than pros. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, they can handle it.
Yeah.
I've got one more to
Go ahead.
Martin as well. Martin, if you could make a full sub, which was pulling the goalie essentially for an extra outfield player late in games, do you think you'd use that, or would that be too much risk for the reward?
Too much risk for the reward, I think. But I mean, you never know. Last seconds of the game, you could put on your big center half that's on the bench to go for a corner.
Yeah.
But I think that's maybe taking it a bit too far. But theory's not bad. I don't mind that. I don't mind the fourth sub rule in general if it's a keeper, injured keeper. I think that's a good way to do it. So you can still make your 3 subs. So a lot of teams will wait to make their last sub just too long and make it 5 minutes to go because they don't want to, someone to get injured. So I don't mind that rule.
I don't mind the unlimited subs either in extra time. Like second half of extra time, throw them out, get some fresh legs, and win the game before it gets to PKs.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to see fresh legs on the field. All right, let's look back on that time in Dallas. You mentioned, your brother, Steve Nash, was playing for the Mavericks at that time. That's part of the reason why you ended up there. What was that experience like? Story time with Martin Nash now. Let's bring back some of those memories of your time in Dallas.
Yeah, it was great. We got to hang out a ton. Me and I went to, my wife was probably 8 months. Well, we had our second kid there, but me and my youngest would go to all the games, hang out in the locker room after the game and stuff. So it was a great experience, and it was great to see him, a lot of them. We'd go to dinner a lot, me, him, my wife, take little Tyler and Dirk. We'd always go for dinner like 2-3 times a week. So it was a lot of fun. It was interesting because we'd always go for dinner, and we always knew that they were going to pay, which was nice because they would never let us pay. But the funny thing is, they never paid because the manager of the restaurant was come up, I was taken care of, and I'm thinking that all the people that should be having to pay, it should be these 2 guys. But they got free meals all over the place, which was quite interesting and eye-opening. But no, it was a great time. It was fantastic to reconnect and get to see him play a lot because I was in Europe for most of his career up till then, so I didn't really see many games.
Nowitzki's a big soccer fan, isn't he?
Yeah, I believe he's Bayern Munich fan. I think he says he likes Arsenal too, but I think it's to wind us up because we're Tottenham supporters.
I'm curious, Martin. You're both professional athletes. You were professional athletes in your peak, but very different cultures. Obviously, the North American sort of basketball aggression, like this basketball, football is really their style there. But then you go to Europe where the passion is football, and you both got to experience that in different ways. And then when you were in Dallas, you got to sort of bring those two together. What are some of the biggest differences culture-wise between the two continents in terms of their outright carefree passion for their favorite sports?
Yeah, I think first of all, football or soccer in England, the passion's unbelievable. There's no passion like it. Fans, everyone. It's the number one sport, obviously, but the passion within the fans and just the general people, everyone supports someone pretty much, right? You can pretty much stop any English person on the street and go, what football team you support, and they'll have an answer, right? So. But here it's a little bit different. People support all different sorts of sports, so it's a little bit different from that aspect. But I think it's just the passion for the game in England is just so much. You only get it really, I think, in North America with the players to a certain extent, and then there are obviously passionate fans, but it seems more that way to me. It's just culturally, it's like it's in your blood in England. And in North America, it's kind of like what you kind of gravitate to in a way.
Right. I think in some regards too, that when I'm speaking as someone who's never even been to England, but I mean, just getting to work with a bunch of English and British people in general and being a student of the game, seems like you're a fan of your club and a fan of your country. Whereas here you'll watch you're almost more of a fan of a sport than you are one particular team in most cases.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's definitely interesting. I think there's just more variety in some ways of sport here at the top level. The cricket's somewhat big there, but it's I think it's dying off a little bit, to be honest. Rugby's getting bigger there, and they're quite passionate about it. But really, it's football is the number one sport.
Yeah, it's tribal, right? Like, and even the media plays off that because they know that that kind of thing drives numbers, right? Like just stirring up controversy between clubs and things like that. So something that I think we started to see little seeds of in the CPL at times last year, particularly between Cavalry and Forge, obviously. And yeah, it's nice to see those rivalries kind of developing.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what it is, tribal. And I mean, when we were at the final, we had quite a few fans staying at our hotel that were from Calgary, which was unbelievable to see, and how passionate they were about us and about the team. And we see it when we have pub nights and what have you to get the fans together. There's an unbelievable core of passionate fans, and that's what you need, and that's what you need to build from. And every club's got it to an extent, and it's brilliant to see.
Yeah, we were kind of blown away really when we did some pub nights before each leg of the finals, and just the turnout at those was, I was kind of wondering if these places were going to be half empty, in first year league, but they were packed, so that was pretty cool.
Were you surprised to see that, Martin?
A little bit,
support throughout the city.
Yeah, a little bit. I was a little bit surprised because you just don't know what to expect, really, right? You don't just start a league and just expect thousands to come overnight, right? You think you have to build, and you do to an extent, but I thought right away we had a core of passionate supporters that were there at all the pub nights and fan nights, and they brought their friends, and it snowballed pretty quick, and we had a massive amount of fans behind the net to start the season. It's probably, well, I would say massive, but we had probably 200, and then it slowly grew to 300, 400, 500. Then it would extend to the next section and the next stand. It was just nice to see how it grew and organically through the season, and it was brilliant. And they're a fantastic group of fans, and it was great to see. And in the big games, they showed up for every game, and then the big games you get the extra. And we had a couple fantastic nights at Spruce and O's last year, and it was amazing to see.
Yeah, you mentioned it's happening in all markets, in all the CPL markets. What was it like going home to the islands in Victoria and having that franchise there at Pacific FC?
Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic. I think it's great to see Josh and Rob involved. Ex-teammates of mine, but I think they're kind of putting their money where their mouth is, trying to grow the game. I'm proud of what they're doing. I think it's brilliant. I think the island's a great soccer market. It might take a little bit of time to build, but they've had some really good crowds too, and they got a nice little stadium that they're expanding on. It was when they had the end stand now, it looks brilliant. Yeah. They've done a really good job in building that, and it's a great franchise, great place to play, great place to live, and they have a good supporter section, and I'm sure that'll keep growing over time. And I'm excited to see how that franchise grows over time.
Yeah. So what did you grow up watching and going to when you were a kid in Victoria? What were the pro sports? What did you check out when you were there?
We used to go the Victoria Cougars back in the day.
Yeah.
We went and watched them. We knew the Courtnalls.
Jeff and Russ.
Yeah, Jeff played there for a while, and my dad coached them both in soccer, so we knew them. We knew them from a young age. They lived around the corner. We'd go and play street hockey, and they'd jump in and stuff. So it was pretty neat.
That's great.
To see where they got to. It's pretty funny, but they're fantastic guys. Saw Jeff not too long ago. He lives in Vancouver, and great people. And it was neat to go up around athletes like that.
That's I was just going to ask if your family has jumped on the Cavalry train, or if the island passion is still there, and if they're cheering for the Tridents.
Yeah, well, my dad's the only one on the island. Well, my mom and dad, but my dad really will follow me wherever I go, I think.
Right.
But he's excited that they have professional soccer on the island. I think it's great. But they're only there half a year, right? They're there this is there in the season, so they come when we play, and my dad will go check out a few other games during the season. But I think definitely Cavalry supporters though.
Okay, just that was a test for them. That's all I was curious.
That must have been quite the five-side squad though. You and the Courtnalls, the four of you take anyone else, I guess that's a pretty decent squad. Yeah,
no, it was good. They were I remember we used to play baseball all the time over at the school, and they'd come over. They're quite a bit older, probably 5 years older or something. And I think it was Jeff once. We were just playing, and he goes, "Let me have a hit." And we were at the school field, and he hit it out of the school field, which we thought at the time might not have been that big if I go back and check it now, but he hit it across the street into an apartment building on like the 4th floor, and we all went running.
That's a
wild.
good hit. Wow.
Yeah.
So,
Well, sorry,
Yeah.
Greg. So while we're on the subject of you growing up and being around so many people who went on to have great careers, I did come across a story of you and Steve playing hockey and dropping the gloves when you're on the same team in one game. I read. I think it was because one didn't pass to the other.
Yeah.
Can you recall that one? And I just generally I wondered what it was like. That relationship was like growing up with two guys chasing careers in pro sports.
Yeah, I mean, we battled every day growing up. Just we played whatever it was. We played every sport, and I think that was what our parents were like. Do you want to play hockey? You want to play lacrosse? We played everything. And the one thing that they did do was I often played up a year. So I started soccer year early. My dad was an ex-professional soccer player, so we were playing since we could walk. So he had my brother's team. I played up a year, and I stayed with that team till I was 12, I think. And then we just added sports. I made them do, let's go, let's play. But we were just so intense. We were always playing something and competing at something, all the way up till he went to university. So we just battled each other nonstop, and we just happened to be good at sports too. So we were kind of the best in every sport almost, and we just battled each other in the backyard. We had a school behind us. We'd play basketball, soccer, baseball, whatever it was. Didn't always last too long because if it got to a fight, I ran off pretty quick because he's 5 inches taller. But yeah, it was fun though. We have a lot of great memories growing up.
yeah, your sister Joanne's a decent athlete as well, I understand.
She's a very good athlete. Yeah, she was a really good
Lady
basketball
Vikes,
player.
right?
Sorry?
The Lady Vikes, right?
Yeah, so she was a very good soccer player and basketball player, and she probably could have gone either way, but she just had a bit more passion for soccer and played 5 years at UVic. She was a captain for 3 of them, I think, and had a great career. I think her only disappointment, I think the year after she graduated, they won the national championship. So she never got to experience that. But no, she was a very good athlete, good player, and yeah.
Yeah. As for your brother, though, for Steve, was there a moment that you can recall where you realized that you could be a very special talent and end up having the career they did?
I don't know if there was a moment. It kind of hit pretty quick in a lot of ways. He was, he's deranged. I don't know if that's the right word. He's, the amount, how hard he worked. And I think all top, like you look at Ronaldo's, Messi's, they don't get there because they just good, right? They work incredibly hard every day in, day out. And that's what he was like. He would spend hours in the rain, in the snow, in the backyard, even before he was in college, shooting hoops. Once he kind of chose basketball as a sport. So, and he got to NBA, he kept working. He just had the same work ethic. He would just go practice in the morning, go to the gym in the afternoon, and shoot around. He was crazy almost to an extent, but that's how you have to beat it if you want to get to the top. And it was, for us, it was amazing when he just made the All-Star team. We flew everyone in. We flew our family from England, flew immediate family, all went to Philly, had a great weekend. And we never thought he'd get higher than that, to be honest. It was just something that happened because he got in the right place, the right time, and the right team, and had an incredible couple seasons, if not more. And it was amazing to be along for the ride, to be honest.
Yeah, just kept on going. All right, now this is leads us to probably our toughest homework assignment that we've had on the One Soccer Hangouts. We want everyone to come up with the best sibling duo in all sports, but they can't have played the same sports. So 2 different sports, best sibling duos of all time. Ollie, let's go to you first. Who do you have here?
Well, I'm in trouble here because I didn't know they had to play different sports.
Okay, fair enough. That's what makes your story so incredible. You would see, you mentioned, Martin, that you guys played everything growing up. I think it's easy for the Williams sisters to be dominant at tennis, right? I mean, they got to play against each other all the time. You guys are playing everything.
Yeah, that's true. It's not easy to get to the top in any sport, but Yeah, if you have someone to play against every day and get better and hone your skills, it helps.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give Ollie some time here. I just want to say
All right.
too that I came into this show this morning. I was asked if I could come on, and I said absolutely, I'd love to.
Well done.
And then I got the last minute homework assignment, so it was like it was a high school flashback. Like, did you do that thing from last night? I'm like, oh yeah. Quickly finish it off. But you're right; it's tough to find different sports. But the one that immediately came to mind are the nurse siblings with Darnell and Kia. Kia playing
That's a good one.
Team Canada basketball, and then just winning the Australian Championship with Canberra Capitals, and then Darnell with his career with the Oilers. Staying Canadian. I think Islanders too. Cassie and Darcy Sharp. Cassie's a freestyle skier. I think she's an Olympic champion. Darcy's won a gold medal at the X Games in slopestyle snowboarding, I think. And then the you got Clay Thompson and obviously with the Warriors. Trace playing baseball. I think he was with the Dodgers for a while.
And then Michael was the other brother played, I think, in the NBA as well.
Yeah. So I mean that's a good trio. And then the last one that came to mind, although this is very heavy one-sided, was the Maguires. Obviously Mark, but then Dan was quarterback for the Seahawks. I think first overall draft pick too.
Was he? But
no, he I think Brett Favre was drafted 2 and Dan was drafted 1, and
that's
one
tough.
Clearly outshadowed the other.
Yeah.
That's well done,
that was
though,
my
Adam.
That's very impressive. That's a good roundup, I think. Which
Adam gets an A+.
Yeah, I did.
My
not
parents
do the
would be
homework.
so proud, Asa. Oh, thanks, buddy. Hang that on the fridge.
Ollie, did you find any?
No, I just had a quick Google there, found nothing.
It's really tough.
My choice would have been. Sorry, based on the rules as I understood them, my choice would have been the Klitschko's. I was always big fans of those two in the heavyweight division, so I would have gone with them. I also didn't know that Socrates, who was part of the '82 Brazilian team, his younger brother was Ray, who played in '94. I didn't actually know they were related, so that was one I learned.
Good find.
My last deep dive, another very one-sided one. No disrespect to Patrick Wozniacki, who's a Danish footballer, but his sister Carolyn, just a little bit more successful, I'd say. Asa, you were bragging about one or two that you found. What do you?
I did find a couple. I want to see if Martin has any that we might have missed, though.
No, I don't. To be honest, the only one I really knew about was Clay Thompson. Thompson family. I don't. But you're right. It's very hard.
Pretty tough. Jamie Alexiak, Penny Alexiak.
Jamie and Penny. I should have said that as a Stars fan. I'm a little ashamed of myself, to be honest.
This was actually really hard to research as well. So you did well. You did really well, Adam. Thibaut Courtois and Valerie Courtois. So Thibaut, obviously, footballer, goalkeeper, and his sister Valerie plays professional volleyball. So that was a hard one to find. John Jones, the Jones brothers, 2 of them in the NFL, Arthur Chandler, and then MMA star John Jones.
Yep.
2 of those ones, the Maguires you mentioned, and then Reggie Miller, Cheryl Miller, and then brother Daryl played baseball. That's a good bit of research as well.
There we go.
So some tough ones in there.
Yeah, this has been very informative. I appreciate this. Thank you, producer Lucas and Asa. This I've expanded my horizons today.
Yeah, we learned something. That was all right. But yeah, Martin, you mentioned that you guys played absolutely everything growing up. I'm curious to know who won the battles in each sport. So who? I'm assuming he took you in basketball. Did he?
It was basketball? For the most part in basketball.
Mention the size, which I know is a little bit.
Yeah, the size is tough. I was a shooter though, so if I was hot, it would. If I got hot, we never finished the game because it would end in a fight.
Yeah.
So I'd leave.
Makes sense.
But no, I mean it was tough for me to win anything, to be honest. Not kind of blowing smoke up our butts in a way, but we were the best 2 at every sport. Growing up, we were the best 2 in lacrosse. In fact, in lacrosse, we played 1 year, and we just didn't have enough time because we played baseball as well. And the next year, we didn't go out for tryouts. And my parents got a call, why didn't they come out for tryouts? Oh, they just don't have the time. They can't make most of the practices, and they'd probably make 85% of games type thing. They're like, oh, we're fine with that. Just bring them to the games. So we played lacrosse for 2 more years because they just come to the games because we were kind of the best 2. Yeah. So, we were, good at everything, and we just battled and, eventually I guess found our own paths in different sports.
Yeah. How important was that for your development, for Steve's development as well? And what would you tell younger kids and parents as well of young kids who feel like they need to focus on one sport specifically, especially at a young age right now. I feel like that a lot of parents are
Too
feeling they
young.
need to focus on one.
Yeah, too young. I think a lot of people are focusing. In my opinion, I'm not an expert. I mean, from how it was with me, we played everything, and it helped us in other sports. And we didn't. I would say my brother kind of picked basketball. I would say when he was in probably ninth, 10th grade, but he still played soccer, and he still, he played other things too. And yeah, I was a bit later. I I played college basketball. I went on a recruiting visit to University of Utah for basketball, and
Yeah.
it was just one of those things. And then out of the blue, I hadn't played soccer in a year, and got a call up from U20 national team to come to a camp. And hadn't played. I think the last time I played it was 6 months since I last played, and we had one training session. Went played at the University of Portland, who at the time were one of the best schools in the U.S. And I scored 2 in the first half, and the coaches were like, "Where have you been? What have you been
Yeah.
doing?" Like, like, because they didn't know who I was really, because I lived on the island and never played provincial teams. I played in basketball because
Yeah.
in soccer they were notorious for not picking players from the island at the
Yeah.
time, just because you couldn't make practices because it was an hour and a half ferry ride, so you couldn't
Right.
go to practice during the week. So the island players never got picked back then.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I think all sports help. I think you don't need to pick probably till you're in your early teens.
Yeah.
But I think this day and age, it's everything's so practice, 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 where we were out there practicing without knowing we were practicing because we were playing something all the time. Whereas nowadays, kids, everything's coach led, and you only really play when you go to practice. And
Mhm.
I that's not the way to succeed for me. I think you got to be passionate about it. The one thing I would say, I see so many parents push their kids, push their kids, and push their kids. They got to want it. If the kid doesn't want it, they're not going to make it, I think, unless they're extremely talented, but they won't make it to the top. So that's my advice. But
Yeah.
that's why we weren't pushed. We found our own paths. We worked hard on our own, and we're able to make it.
As a coach, do you see it in some of the kids, especially some of the younger kids, that they have developed skills and traits from other sports that they can apply to soccer? Do you
Yeah,
notice?
yeah, you do. You can pick out kids that play their sports because they don't make sometimes that soccer decision that you're
Yeah.
you're used to. You see them. Oh, that's you can see just different ideas or doing different things a little bit. And I think
Mm.
that's great at younger ages. But there just has to become a point when you specialize, and you got to play enough to have the skill level, especially in soccer. So you do have to
Yeah.
do enough when you're young. But if you're out doing it on your own, you can still get it that way without doing the extra and play other sports. But yeah, I mean, as long as you get the skills, and I had that from a young age. We'd play every day in the backyard with our dad, soccer,
Mhm.
right? Because he'd come home from work, he'd have to get out of his suit, and we would get in the backyard and we'd play. And my dad would just make rules because he was a technical player. So you guys can only play with your left foot. So we would play, touch the ball with the right foot. He'd say, I'm going in, and we'd beg. So in the end, my brother's left foot's better than his right,
Right.
and I have a very good left foot too. So it was something brought to us. But yeah, we learned the skills at a young age, and but as I say, didn't pick till late on.
It's a pretty interesting subject in terms of like physical development as well, right? 'Cause I remember there was an NBA draft quite recently. I can't remember the year, but I think it was Joel Embiid's draft,
Mhm.
where the first round was just decimated by injuries in their rookie year. And like looking into the type of players that were in that
Mm.
draft, so many of them had been to those prep schools and specialized from such a young age.
Mhm.
And it, you don't develop properly physically if you don't have that kind of diversity of sports, right, in your background. So
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Agility and other things,
yeah.
balance, coordination, it all helps, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, it's a great topic, and it's one thing that's actually noticed about your brother Steve. Watching him in his career as a basketball player, I would see like soccer traits, and I'd be like, "Oh yeah, that's it. That's like a backward soccer type pass." I feel like you are wired a little bit differently, and you see things differently, and especially like you said, when you're trained in specific sports, you end up you can become a fairly rigid player, I guess, and trained to do things a certain way. I mean, you bring a different bit of vision there. I think it can only help your game. Um, what's something that you brought from the other sports and applied to your soccer career, Martin?
Uh, phew, that's tough to say. I think the biggest thing that I learned is vision is
Yeah.
one thing. I think that helped playing other sports. You just saw things maybe a little bit quicker, saw things develop, maybe a bigger field of vision depending on the sport. Spatial awareness is a big one you learn in different sports because you go play hockey and you're in tight spaces. Your soccer in a bigger field. So everything helps a little bit. I think it can bring other things to your game. Um, but yeah, I think the vision was probably the biggest one, and
Yeah.
just being able to see things before they were, before they happened.
Yeah. And it,
Totally
led
agree.
to a great soccer career. You had a great run with the national team, including the Gold Cup win in the year 2000. Congratulations on all that success. Do you feel like that team, that era, was somewhat underappreciated?
Yeah, to an extent, but I think also like kids these days wouldn't know about the '86 World Cup team really much. Yeah, the players. I think with social media now, people are players that have come later. Once in the social media era, they're more well known in a lot of ways.
Mm.
Um, we do have a great generation coming in now. It was since about 2010 we kind of had a dip for quite a while, of results really, because I think they even the one where they lost 8-1, was it? I can't remember the final
Yeah,
score.
Honduras.
Yeah, yeah,
If they had won that game, they were through to the heck, so they were close.
yeah.
And Honduras is a horrible place to go play, for many reasons. It's not easy. Um, but yeah, I think to an extent, like there's a lot of great players that played for Canada in the past, and
Yeah.
I yeah, we won the Gold Cup final, played in the Gold Cup semifinal in 2007, which we should have been going in extra time, but got a offside call, phantom offside call on a goal we scored to go in extra time when the U.S. were already down to 10 men.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I played with some great players. I mean, when I first came on the team, there was probably well, maybe I would say 7 or 8 guys playing in either the English Premiership, Scottish Premiership,
Yeah.
and then you also had Radzinski, who was playing in Belgium top league. There was a bunch of guys that were playing top flight football at the time.
Mhm.
Um, I was in the championship, so it was a good level. There's a couple guys. Carlo Corzine was in the championship. There was a
Yeah.
good guy, Paul Pescasito playing in the championship in England. So there's a lot of guys playing at very good levels. So we had strong teams, but I think what Canada's problem has been for a long time is just not being able to win on the road.
Right.
It's tough. You go to some of these Central American countries, and it's unbelievable how passionate they were, how tribal they are. Every single person in the country knows the game's going on. Whereas you could be having a national team game in Vancouver, say, and 25% of the population of Vancouver know the game's going to happen. And you
Yeah.
might still get 50,000 people, but it's is everyone aware of what's going on? Whereas you go into those countries, every single person is aware of who you are, why you're there, and what's going on.
Yeah. Good point.
Well, we've had conversations with some of the guys who were in the national team around the same time you were, and I think particularly around the time of like 2007 and the Gold Cup that year, there just seems to be this kind of a little bit of a lingering feeling of regret that maybe that team didn't fully achieve what it could have, or it didn't break into the mainstream as much as it could have. How do you feel about that?
Absolutely, I think there's a few reasons. I think if we recall back to that time, Stephen Hart was the interim manager, and
Yeah.
we had a fantastic Gold Cup. We were firing. We had great chemistry, and the CSA made a decision to promote Dale Mitchell, who's one of Canada's greatest ever players. And
Mhm.
people probably don't even know how good a player he was. Fantastic human being, great coach. Don't get me wrong, but you change a coach and you change a culture a little bit, and it was right as I think he had 6 months, maybe 8 months before World Cup qualifying started and you don't get the team together too often. So I think they had left that team with Steven then and just left Dale where he was and promoted Dale later on. I think it would have been better for both of them, to be honest, because they went back to Steven after. But I think that team had some fantastic talent, and Dale had different mindset, and I think Dale's first game was my last game. He, for whatever reason, that wasn't in his plans. But I was starting for Steven, and but it happens to every manager. Guys come in, and I played for about 8 different national team managers. I wasn't everyone's cup of tea. Didn't play for everyone, a lot for everyone, I should say. But I think when a new coach comes in, new turnover, there's a lot of Canadian players playing around, and you try to find the ones that fit. So I think that's a bit of it for me. Is the sour taste. I didn't really get involved, rightly or wrongly. It's coach's decision. I'll live with it. I think that generation, I think, did have a chance because I think we had a bit of everything, and we had a lot of players playing in good level, and we were doing well going into World Cup qualifying.
All right, let's go back to 2000. We got a question from Adam in our YouTube chat. He's wondering what winning the Gold Cup was like for Canada. So just go back to that victory and what it meant for the country and what you remember from it.
Yeah, I mean, a crazy tournament to start with. It was a lot of great memories. But we're going into a final against Colombia, and I think obviously Holger. Osiak got our tactics right, and we played really a kind of a 3-6-1, and sat deep. And Colombia wanted to try and get them behind us in certain ways. We clogged the middle because they wanted to play through the middle, and we were able to counter quite well on them. We got obviously 2 set piece goals. I missed a great chance. I think just after we'd scored, or maybe just before. Missed a great chance, but we had a couple other chances, and I thought we were the better team in that final. Craig Forrest was unbelievable through the whole tournament. Saved 2 penalties, one in the semifinal, one in the final. It was an amazing kind of 3 weeks. We just gelled together. I don't even think we had a full squad of 18, to be honest. There, I think we might have had 16, 17 guys, and we came together, and it's just kind of one of those us against the world kind of things. We kind of got a bit of confidence as we went, and even the Mexico game was hard. I think once we beat Mexico in the quarterfinal, and the golden goal just kind of gave us that belief.
Mm-hmm.
How much do you think, as someone who I was obviously back in England at the time, but how much did the country kind of get behind you during that tournament? Did you capture people's imagination a little bit with that kind of run, or does it take more of a World Cup, do you think, to get that level of mainstream awareness, I guess?
Yeah, I think we did to an extent. But we'll look at back in 2000. It's not like it is today. If it was in today's time when everything's just, Instagram, tweet, whatever. Yeah. It was just a newspaper, to be fair. And while the games were played on Sportsnet, I don't know what the viewership would have been, but it did, people did know about it. Don't get me wrong. It was big, but, it's a shame it wasn't kind of more in this era, because it would have made it bigger and maybe got more people behind the game and the national team.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of the reason for that, being a bit of an underappreciated era. You mentioned a few of the names, great careers. Who are the top 3 underappreciated Canadian players people may not know about, sir? Just underappreciated players, Martin.
I think underappreciated. I think I would probably go Thomas Rudzinski, number 1, because I don't think you hear much about him.
Right.
He was unbelievable. Pace, power, and a great guy, great character, fantastic player. I think he was somewhat underappreciated. We had some good talents at the time, but he didn't. Yeah. I think the problem was, I think he got disillusioned, but it didn't come in all the time, for whatever reason.
Why is that? That was. It seemed like it was a bigger issue at that time, in that era, where people wouldn't play for Canada. Now it's completely different. It seems like everyone's coming in, or everyone's on board. But there was a spell there where you weren't sure who was going to show up.
Yeah, and I think part of it was, now that they have the international windows, it makes it a lot easier. So we played Costa Rica in the Hex back in 1997, and Thomas Rudzinski didn't come to the game because it was the same day as the Belgian Cup final.
Right.
When they get into Europe, and you're like, try making that decision. Your club's paying you, lots of money because he's playing at top level, and he's their leading scorer, and I think he scored the winner in that cup final. But it's just one instance. I'm not trying to put any
sure. But that's one of the things. Yeah.
How do you make that decision, right? Yeah. And nowadays with international dates, you don't have to make that decision. So we ended up winning the game 1-0 anyways. But missing guys like that for whatever reason is a big game for their club. The club's looking, you're going to leave. We're paying your wages in a way. You know what I mean? So I think FIFA's got it right now with that, with
Certainly
international,
helps. Yeah.
so players don't miss out on club games or club competitions.
All right, Adam, let's get some of your underappreciated players. So you
Yeah, I
dug up.
mean, Rudzinski was definitely up there on that list for me. I mean, and admittedly, I'm one of the younger guys on the
Yeah.
One Soccer panel, so a lot of this generation we talk about visibility and exposure. Like, I was too young to sort of, I didn't have the access to a lot of these names, so I came into this as a soccer fan late doing research. So Rudzinski was one of them that stood out to me. Just going back to on our conversation a couple weeks ago with Ian Hume, I think he is a player that could have played a little bit more. And as someone, I mean, you model yourself after national players to a minor degree, obviously, but Hume, that sort of aggression at the number 9, I thought he was a player that could have played more. And the stories he told were really enlightening, but Rudzinski and Hume were the two that really stood out to me.
He's a very, very good player, very passionate. He's a very hard worker. Great guy. Yeah, he was a very, very good player.
Yeah, for sure. I'd agree with those. I'm not the first person to say this, but speaking in kind of a wider sense, I'd say Atiba, in terms of the broader awareness of what he's achieved in his career in Canada. He's had an unbelievable career, played at such a high level, and I think a lot of Canadians probably still don't know who he is,
right,
or at least know much about him. So I'd throw him in there as well.
I agree, especially in his prime. I thought Atiba was just incredible, and a lot of people didn't know what he was doing and how good he is. Richard Hastings, Mark Watson, Carlo Corazine, a few others who had incredible careers. Anyone stand out that we might have missed, Martin?
There's lots. There's so many. It's like I mentioned earlier, Dale Mitchell was probably one of a brilliant player. People don't know how good a player he was because of the era he was in. And
right,
even back then, you had Frank Yallop playing the Premiership, and I know he became a coach, and he's probably more famous for being a coach than he is for what he did as a player. So there's a lot of guys that had great careers. Nick Dazovic, people played in the Scottish Premiership for 9 years. People probably don't know how good a player he was. And I think it's just maybe the era we're in. And I think people are more getting passionate about being Canadian as time goes on, because my parents came in from the UK. A lot of people are, for second generation Canadians, they always would cheer for the home country before they cheer for Canada. And it still happens. Obviously, you see Italy play and Italian flags everywhere. And I don't want to take that passion out of them, but cheer for both in a way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like there's
it's
a
great
shift.
point.
Not that they don't, but some just are so passionate about their home country. I'd like to see some of that passion a bit towards Canada, and we're getting there. We are, absolutely. It's getting a lot better, but and my family's the same. Don't get me wrong, but they became passionate about Canada when me and my brother started playing for Canada. To be fair, but it's something I think that is coming. People are getting more passionate about Canadian national teams in general, and which is great to see.
Yeah. Going back to the CPL a little bit here, you mentioned Ian Hume. What can a player like that, a veteran, bring to a CPL club?
That'd be tough now. Is he still playing? He was last year. I think he played in India, didn't he? But
That's right. He was playing in India.
He was mentioning that he had some aspirations to go to the CPL, and he'd pick up the phone if they called, but he doesn't know. I mean, Hume seems like the kind of guy where if you gave him the opportunity, he would get himself as match fit as possible. But he's sort of semi-retired, I think was the word he used.
Right.
Yeah. I think he would bring value, definitely. He would maybe be someone good for a club, as a player assistant. Fill both roles, and definitely bring a spark to any team. Training habits, what it takes to he would help younger players so much. He's a fantastic guy, and I'd love to see him in the league in some capacity. If it's as a player and he's just kind of coming in for 20 minutes, he'd make big impact for a team. But it'd be interesting to see, because if someone does bring him in, but it might be tough now. But we'll see. I'd love to see him involved in the league, though.
Martin, we got a question in the chat from Aaron, and it was one I was going to ask you as well. With the success you've had with Cavalry, combined with all the experience you have as a player, I would imagine that draws some attention when head coaching roles come up. And there was a little bit of talk with Pacific last year. is becoming a head coach the next step for you, something that you would like to progress to soon?
Yeah, I would like to at some point. I always want to progress and get better. And, if that opportunity comes, it'd have to be the right opportunity. I'd love a chance to be head coach. I'm happy where I am now. I'm with a great organization. Love working with Tommy and the rest of the staff. So, but yeah, the right opportunity comes along, I'd like that chance to be head coach.
Mhm.
Was there any interest from Pacific FC? I know that'd be going back home for you as well.
Yeah, it would be something I would definitely think about. And it would be great to be back home, and help that franchise grow. But yeah, I mean, they went in the direction they went, and
Hmm.
I was happy where I was. So
Yeah.
yeah, it is what it is. We'll see if something else pops up over time.
You briefly slipped and mentioned Tater. I'm assuming you were talking about Tater Torreson, your coach with the Vancouver Whitecaps. It just reminded me of your time with the Whitecaps, the impact you had on young players and all the work you did in the community. A great career with the Vancouver Whitecaps, but unfortunately retired just before the team went into MLS. How difficult was that decision for you, Martin?
That was very difficult. It was really tough at the time because I'd worked so hard to stay in shape, stay fit. I was 30, just about turned 35. I would have been 35 the first year of the MLS, um, and I had a conversation with Tater. They just didn't feel like it covered the ground I needed to cover. They felt the league was more athletic, and I needed to cover more ground. And I disagreed a little bit, but it just wasn't going to be. And they offered me a role in the coaching ranks, and it was a good opportunity to start the next chapter in my career. And spend a couple of days talking about it and figuring out which is the best way to go. And I chose to go into coaching role because it was now that was starting the career for the next hopefully 30 years.
Yeah. Do you wish you could have played one season?
It would have
Would you have
been
liked
nice.
to at least
I
test
think
it out? Yeah.
yeah, it would have been nice. It was tough to see kind of the team that had been so successful, and they made a lot of changes and kind of had a dip for a few years. But it's always tough joining a new league and a new structure.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious, when you play for so many different coaches and now working so close with a guy like Tommy, how much do different tactics rub off on you or make you look at the game a different way? Because you've played probably in more formations than you can count and more styles. So when we broached the conversation of one day hoping to step into a head coaching role, what are some of the tactics that have really shaped you, and what would a Martin Nash, or what does a Martin Nash sort of coaching style look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think the way I like to play is very similar to we play now. I like to be aggressive, try and own the ball if we can, but not give the other team time on the ball. And that's really what we try to do with Calgary or Cavalry. We try to get in teams' faces, don't let them get in a rhythm. And when we have the ball, try to make them run and chase it and create over number opportunities and score a lot of goals. And we were successful at it last year. That's the way I like to see teams play. I don't want to
Yeah.
see a team just sit back and counter. It's not so much fun to watch for me. And you want a game that the fans want to see. You want to get in another team's face and don't let them play and don't let them settle.
Yeah. Since we're talking style of play and tactics, let's go right to the final. Would you have done anything differently tactically when you approach those two games against Forge?
Um, I don't know. I don't know if I'd do anything different. I think the first game was going the way we wanted to for the first 30 minutes. It was a stalemate, really. I think other than uh, Becker hitting the bar from
Right.
a bouncing ball from 30, which is kind of just something that happens at a bouncy pitch like that. The red card kind of gave them just it gave them an advantage, obviously, and they took advantage because they didn't really create anything up until the red card, and then after the red card, they created a number of opportunities before we could settle in. And then I thought the game ended quite evenly once they had a man sent off.
Yeah.
So I think it was if we don't have the sending off and maybe the game stays 0-0. You just never know, right? So it's hard to say you change something tactically when if we had a great start to the game, they weren't connecting passes. It was very even. I watched the game back a number of times, and I
Yeah.
was surprised. I had that sense that it wasn't very even, but there wasn't much. We were comfortable for 25, 30 minutes until the sending off. And then
Right.
home game,
Changes.
I mean, other than creating in the final third, and maybe, you know, you could have gone with this guy or that guy, but it's always tough to say. If Malonga puts that header in, it's a different story, right? Or if, the referee was almost gave the penalty right at the end there, and when I put his whistle and then decided against it right in the counterattack.
Yeah.
So I think it's tough. It was a game of inches, really, because if you look at it, it was really a 1-0 series over the two legs. They created probably more overall just because of during the 10-men stint that they had when we were at 10 men and on the road. So, but I think every game against them all year was close, right?
Yeah.
It was a battle. They're a very good team. They have, I think Kyle Becker's a extremely talented player, and he ran the show. I think,
Yeah.
he was the one player you had to stop getting the ball because he made that team tick. I know Borges scored a lot of goals, but Becker was the one making that team tick.
Yeah. Well,
you,
go
sorry,
ahead, Ollie. Yeah.
are you a fan of playoffs and deciding the season that way, or did you feel a little hard done by after the 28 game season you guys had had?
Well, I don't mind the playoffs at all.
Yeah.
It was I think that's just the North American way. It's not really playoffs. It's just kind of a cup final.
Right.
But we won the league. They won the cup, right? So it is what it is. It's I think it's way North American. I do like the idea of a final because it's something to celebrate, and it's great. It gives us motivation.
Yeah.
Next year.
Yeah, just got to win the next one, whenever that might be.
Sooner rather than later, I hope. Yeah.
Yeah, we're all hoping.
And you mentioned cup too, so this is just maybe a personal taste question, not to sort of go back and revisit maybe why things happen, but do you think they should almost adopt a supporter shield structure like Major League Soccer, where the North Star Shield goes to the regular season champs, and then you have a cup for the cup final?
Yeah, I think that's kind of the way it's done in every league. I think even the NBA, you win the league, you get something, right? You win.
Yeah.
But it just, I think it's first year growing pains.
Yeah.
I think you have a one league structure. You have your league winner, and then who's your playoff winner, like the MLS, right?
Right.
Or
Well,
it's growing. It's getting better. I think it was first and foremost fantastic to get a season off the ground that was as successful as it was.
Yeah.
It was absolutely brilliant. It was far outreached my expectations for year one, and proud of everyone who was involved and what from front office, backroom staff, from everything. I just thought everyone did a great job to create a fantastic league, which is going to be great for Canadian soccer.
Yeah, it was great to watch. You guys' games against Forge, entertaining every single match. It was fun to watch. We thank you so much for coming on with us, Martin. That concludes our 1 hour program. Flew by. It was great. Tons of content though on our YouTube channel. So I want to encourage everyone to subscribe, get updates on everything that we have coming out. Some more footy action tonight, Inside the Game as well with Gareth Wheeler. Those episodes have been amazing. Adam hosting the Hangout once again tomorrow. Adam, who do you have on tomorrow?
Pamadou Ka, going to introduce him to the CPL
nice.
tomorrow.
Excellent. So we want to thank everyone for watching. Stay safe, stay sane. Have a good one.